Hey guys, this is Dinosaur Drawer. Let's just get my camera to focus. Alright, this is Dinosaur Drawer and this is the second part on how to draw the indoraptor standing on his hind legs. And I'm really having some trouble with recording because my phone won't really recharge. So the fact is that I've got two phones, and this is just an older one. But the camera on this phone is a lot better, and this phone has the option to record time-lapse videos. So that's why I'm using this phone. So yeah, alright. So now we can start trying to give it some more detail, and I'm actually a little bit concerned about how his neck looks like right now. So I'm just gonna refine this just a little bit. His neck kind of looks like this, and it's actually more attached to this part of his head. So it might actually be a little bit more like this, and it might seem like his neck is a little bit too long, but I think it will eventually turn out to look a lot better. So yeah, let's just first focus on the detail on his body. So he has like a very pronounced line right there. A lot of, you would say, muscles over here. Very high amount of wrinkles and veins, I guess. And of course we do need to get his kind of pattern in. It kind of goes like this, and it goes up into his arm right here. Kind of stops about over there. Goes on to his arm a little bit more. I'm not sure if it goes all the way until his elbow, but I'm just gonna draw it that way. And then kind of goes from over here goes all the way up until this part. And let's just get it in a little bit more clear. So that we won't actually go over that too much, and of course get his shoulder in. His shoulder blade about over there. And there would be a lot of shadow, but we are not going to see that very clearly because there are going to be a lot of plates there. Alright, and it gets a little bit thinner over here, by the way. And then it goes up to his tail. And I'm not sure if it goes all the way of the length of his tail, but let's say it just kind of stops right there. And it does not go over his hip or over his arm. I'm drawing this line in very dark so you can really clearly see it. Let's say it just kind of goes like this and like this. You can't really see it there anymore. So now we want to get a couple of plates in. So he has a couple of plates that are kind of shaped like this. On his neck and on his back and part of his tail as well. They're actually kind of sticking out a bit. So make sure you draw that correctly. And then above his hip, you can kind of see his hip right there. It gets a lot thinner. Let's not go over his hip too much. And then over here it gets just thinner and thinner until there's nothing left of it. And then we have kind of a second row. It doesn't really go too much over this part because this part is actually a very thick highlighted part. And let's just draw a couple of lines like this, because that is actually what this area kind of looks like. And then let's go back to his face and refine this part once more. I'm gonna erase it because I wanna get it exactly right. I'm not really happy with the way that this part looks right now because it's supposed to be a little bit more like this. So that looks a little bit better in my opinion. And then this part just goes like that. Alright, and also just continue on doing the detail on his throat a little bit. And bit of shadow on his jaw as well. And I'm gonna try to make it pretty dark actually, with just a lot of highlights here and there. And then actually this part goes like this. And then kind of goes like that. Let's erase that and get it a little bit more clean in there. So he has a line that goes like this. Very strange, but that's how it is. And then this part around his eye is very, very dark. He has a lot of wrinkles and scales around there. make sure everything is very pronounced. There's a lot of muscles in his neck as well, by the way. Now let's just draw a little bit of detail into this. And of course a couple of lines coming from his teeth going into his into this kind of area over here a little bit. And then make a couple of areas very dark. Well, that might actually be a little bit too much of too much pronounced. So it's really not clear how this part is supposed to look, what it's supposed to look like, I would say. But I'm just gonna make it really dark. And let's get his eye in. And a little bit of shadow, a couple of lines around his eye, a couple of wrinkles. Then darken in this part completely and kind of make an indication of a tongue still being there. Alright. And now let's get the second row of these plates in. And these are shaped a little bit differently. And I'm really sorry if the drawing is gonna look a little bit of lesser quality, because yeah, I can't record for too long, otherwise my camera will simply, well, my phone will simply turn itself off. And then I have to wait for a couple of hours before I can record again. So I'm trying to kind of stop that, I mean act before that happens. So that's why I'm drawing a little bit faster than normal. I'm trying to draw a little bit faster than normal. And normally I would actually have taken the time to do certain things the right way. A little bit of skin over there. And his knee would actually be over here, because this leg is kind of a bit forward. and then his muscle would be over there. One muscle over here, and then kind of going like this, and a couple of other ones over there as well. This is kind of overlapping this a little bit, and over here as well, just a bit. Just trying to get a couple of lines to indicate where the muscles would be. And I want to get the tone of this part a little bit better as well. But make sure not to go over the stripe too much. We just want to leave that part as light as we can. Kind of see a shoulder blade a little bit over there. And then we have a lot of those kind of, they're not really spikes, but not sure what to call them, but we're just gonna draw them like this. Just dark circles, very small little dark circles. And we have a lot of them actually. And we have a second row of them as well. And the second row is a little bit smaller. And we might actually go a little bit over the hip with the smaller ones. And you might hear my dog snoring in the background. Please don't try to focus too much on that. So I'm just making some areas a little darker to get that little detail to stand out a little bit more even. Because it is already very dark and I drew it a little bit too fast. And also this part would be very dark as well. Let's actually make his lower jaw a little bit pronounced to where it splits into the teeth area. Yeah, it's just really, I'm really trying to do it too fast, and this is the result. So yeah, I'm really sorry guys. I really have to fix that problem as fast as I can. So this area has a lot of those lines as well. And this actually goes more like this over here, a little bit more of a bump over there. We have a lot of shadow over there and over there. But we also do have a lot of highlights everywhere. And actually we could already draw a couple of those feathers in. And they get smaller and smaller, and we have a lot more of them at different kind of angles. Just like that. And then we also have a couple of them over here, but these actually come from those circles, but he also has them on top of every row. He has one of a little circle. So let's just draw that in. And on the second row as well, because that's actually where the feathers come from. And then the other feathers actually come from over here. And just draw them like this, just a couple of them. Just 3 large ones, and then they get a little smaller and smaller every time. And they just kind of go on for a little bit over there. And then draw a couple of them at a slightly different angle, like this. Not too much of a different angle, just a slightly bit of a different angle. And then just kind of make them fade into the rest of the drawing a little bit. Alright. So let's just get a little bit of detail into his arm as well. He does have a lot of muscles going on down, on his arm. And a tone that we're going to draw in right now, but make sure not to go over the area that we want to keep highlighted, because that's the area where the stripe will be. So what you could do later on, you could go back in and make that stripe a little, get a little bit of yellow in there. I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna keep it just black and white like it is right now. But you could always try and get some color in your drawing if you like to have some color in it. So now you just draw a couple of Jurassic Park style scales on his hands and his fingers, and then just darken in some areas a little, maybe even his little fingers over there. And now just do the same thing on this hand, but there's a little less visible because of the angle that it's in. And also on this small thumb. And then just darken in the bottom sides of the claws a little. I mean of the fingers. Maybe you could get a little bit of a couple of lines in there and stuff. So now we also want to make this area a little darker as well, and a couple of muscles in there as well. So that's what we're just gonna do right now. Alright, over here a little bit more shadow would be appropriate, I think. And also he has a couple of feathers on his arms, so we could draw a couple of feathers on his arms right here. They kind of go like this. They're not too big. Just kind of like this, and then they just get smaller bit by bit. So that should be fine. Alright. And now let's get a little bit of detail going on everywhere. So over here is his hip, so get a couple of those lines going right over there. Get a little bit of tone in this area. So yeah, again guys, it's turning out kind of messy, but that's just because I don't have too much time. So actually his knee would be over here. And then there goes a muscle, kind of like this. And this area would also be very dark and shadowish. This area is very dark as well. Then just get that tone into your drawing. Make this area a little bit darker. Yeah, and just make sure to just get a couple of lines in there to kind of get a little bit of texture. But make sure that the muscle lines are still clearly visible. And you could also just get a little bit of tone in it by doing that. Just do those little scales over here as well. And here as well. Make this part a little darker because it's a little bit more in the background. And also over here. Bit shadow over there. And a bit muscle. And that's actually a tiny little bit too dark on camera, so I'm gonna erase it a little bit. Yeah, some areas, because of the angle that my light is actually producing light, it sometimes looks like there's more, the lines on this side of the paper are darker than on the other side of the paper. Well, in reality that isn't true. Alright, get this part finished like that, and then just another muscle that goes like this, and then just try and get a couple of little scales, and then just make this part a lot darker. This arm is also supposed to be a little bit more at the background, but the way that I did the shadow over there is a little bit messy, so it looks like it's more at the foreground, so that's not what we want to achieve. And now just for this area, just kind of do the same. Kind of get a little bit of tone into the drawing by making shadow at the underside of his toe, maybe even a bit over here as well, but make sure not to go over the highlighted line, because we want to keep that as it is right now. Alright, a couple of lines that go like this. Try and fade it into his leg a little. And we could just try and keep a little bit of a highlight into his tail. Okay, and we are about finished. If you liked the video, leave a like, comment below what you think about the drawing and the video in general, and don't forget to subscribe. So, this was Dinosaur Drawer, and goodbye.